Well, let me see. First of all, I'll start with I grew up in Cleveland, born in Cleveland, raised in Cleveland, and I am a proud product of the Cleveland public school system. Miles Standish Elementary, Empire Junior High, Collinwood High, and started at Case in the class of, actually started in 1965. So that was my journey to Case. That a little bit of background beyond that in terms of education. It was a time when the education system in Cleveland was really very strong. We had an enrichment major work program, took French in second grade and did presentations. And at the time, the neighborhoods were changing, however, and the school system was reflecting that. I ended up, my homeroom teacher at Empire got me transferred to Collinwood because they still had the enrichment programs, and spent 4 years at Collinwood. Was a dabbler in sports, played baseball as a kid, and at Collinwood started out with sprints in track and field. Moved to high jump, played basketball, varsity basketball for 3 years, played junior varsity football for a couple of years. So I consider myself a dabbler when it comes to sports and athletics, at least in terms of growing up and my high school experience. Majors, when I started, first of all, I only applied to one school. I thought about a bunch of different schools. I decided I wanted to go to engineering, thought about different possibilities, but I ended up applying to Case. I had an uncle that applied to Case. He didn't get accepted, and he ended up going to Winnipeg, Canada to get his engineering degree. So he was an engineer at McDonald in Southern California at the time. I had an uncle that owned the first Black-owned grocery store in Cleveland. My dad was a claims examiner for the Veterans Administration, and for most of my life, my mom was a stay-at-home mom, but she did hairdressing and flower arranging, and when she went back to work, she was an EKG technician and worked the factory and just did a lot of different things. A brother and sister, older sister, and a younger brother, and we grew up in the Glenville area of Cleveland. I thought that I was going to be an electrical engineer when I went to Case. Little that I knew about electrical engineering. I'd done projects around the house with my dad. I said, I know about electricity. That electrical engineering sounds good. Then I thought about it some more and said, well, no, I think I want to design roller coasters. So maybe something like that would be a good way to go. Ended up majoring in mechanical engineering and finishing up in 1969, and went to work for GE after that, and went back to actually Case Western Reserve at that time to get an MBA from what is now the Weatherhead School. So that's the academic part. I spent most of my early years in Cleveland, worked for General Electric for almost 10 years. I went to work for a electronic components distributor in the Bay Area for a couple of years, and they transferred me up to Seattle in 1980, and I've been in the Pacific Northwest ever since. So still living in Pacific Northwest, started a company 37 years, almost 38 years ago, and I'm now in transition from founding and running that company to moving into retirement, hopefully accomplish that over the next year or so. So I'll stop there and find out a little bit more about Tre.
Yeah, Tre, if you can, tell us a little bit about yourself and your background before coming to CWRU and kind of what you're up to now.
So Earl, your resume is quite impressive, and if I could achieve half the things that you have achieved over your lifetime, I know it'll be a good one. But for me, I'm from Newcastle, Delaware. That's where I was born and raised, grew up there, graduated from Appoquinimink High School. And throughout the recruiting process, I knew I wanted to play baseball in college. I've always been a baseball fan, played a couple other sports growing up, basketball, played football earlier, had a couple concussions, had to let that go. But baseball was a thing that I knew from probably about 10 years old I wanted to play collegiately. So going through the recruiting process, had a few injuries, and fortunately for me, it delayed my process and allowed Case Western to come onto my radar. So I was able to find this university, and it's been magnificent. It's been an awesome experience for me. I've got to play 4 years of baseball here, and I have an extra year of eligibility. So I'm going to play next year as a master's student. And Case Western has been awesome for me. I'm majoring in nutritional biochemistry on the pre-medicine track. So the aspiration is to attend medical school. And as of now, I think I want to go into pediatrics just because of my background with working with kids. I coach, I umpire, and then I also have a little brother. So I love working with kids. So that's kind of where I see my path going. So I start my master's program this summer in medical physiology. So I'm really excited about that. And I've really just enjoyed my experience here so far at Case and in Cleveland, and being able to be exposed to different things, have a great healthcare system that I've been able to learn from different physicians and learn from my professors and things of that nature. It's been an awesome experience. So I'm proud to be a Spartan. I can't believe it's coming to an end as an undergraduate right now. The 4 years flew by. But yeah, that's a little bit about my experience so far.
Wow. Well, you have a lot to be proud of in a very short amount of time. So congratulations to you.
Yes, sir. I appreciate that. Thank you. And just trying to move onward and upwards, you know how we say. So
yes, absolutely.
Yes, sir.
I kind of want to dive into both of your athletic experiences here a little bit, because I have a feeling they're going to be somewhat different. You know, Earl, you kind of were in the waning days of that rivalry, that WRU CIT rivalry, when, you know, right before the merger. And we're on the football team. I know those games were huge in the Cleveland area at the time. Can you tell us a little bit about your athletic experience, and also as a high jumper as well, I believe, you know, a really high jumper at that point. Tell us a little bit about what your athletic experience was like at Case.
Sure. And just to set the stage a little bit, 65 was the first year of freshman eligibility for varsity athletics at the college level. So that was the one significant change that happened during my time there. Because I didn't play varsity football in high school, that wasn't on my radar or on Case's radar. So I didn't get an invitation for football, but because of the first year of freshman eligibility, it was also the first year that they had a freshman football team. And with the academic program, it's very structured, especially the first few years. We had 18 credit hours a semester, and everybody had the same routine, especially the freshman year. One of the requirements was a physical education requirement, which if you were in a sport, that could qualify for your phys ed requirement. My schedule had phys ed at 8 o'clock in the morning. And another requirement was if you couldn't pass a swimming test, your phys ed class was a swimming class. So I'm thinking, cold water, swimming pool, 8 o'clock in the morning. What are my other options? And then I found out that they had this freshman football team that they were starting, and that would have qualified for phys ed requirements. So I signed me up. So that was what got me into football at Case, was not wanting to get in the swimming pool at 8 o'clock in the morning. We didn't have great football teams, but we certainly practiced hard, played hard, and it was a great experience. The rivalry, John, as you suggested, was intense, and quite frankly, the federation between Case Tech and West Reserve was announced in '67, and that actually intensified the rivalry, I think, the last few years, because it was one for bragging rights of the campus. And it was a big deal. Like maybe you could liken it on a maybe smaller scale to Ohio State, Michigan. You could go undefeated, but if you lost the rivalry game, it was not a successful season. And conversely, if you didn't win any games, but you won that last game, it's pretty good season. So that was a big deal. I think between the sophomore and junior year, they just had an expansion on campus, and they eliminated the football stadium to make more room. And so we actually played our last couple of years at Shaw High School, was our home field for football. Conversely, we had a great track and field team. We were undefeated, had undefeated dual meet record, Pac conference champions for a number of years. And so that was also an enjoyable experience, but at the other end of the spectrum in terms of team success. So those were my athletic experiences. And high jump wise, back in the olden days, we had the high jump pits were either sawdust or foam rubber. So that was what you had to deal with in terms of high jumping. So this was prior to the Fosbury flop, because with the pit conditions, you had to have a landing that was appropriate for the conditions at the time. But very, very good times both in my football experience and track and field experience at Case.
I was going to ask if that was the pre-Fosbury flop days of track. I don't want to date you too much if I missed the date on that, but that's fabulous.
No, it was definitely pre. And again, I think that and the same thing for pole vault. Again, sawdust or foam rubber. So pre-fiberglass poles for pole vault. So yes, a lot of differences in technology. From they talked about we were the cinder people because the tracks were cinders, and it was a very different time.
Well, and I will tell you, and the other thing that stands out to me is that, the Michigan-Ohio State comparison, which I think if you tell a current Case Western Reserve University athlete that, they kind of shake their head a little bit. But everyone who participated in that rivalry at the time, that's the game that they point to as kind of similar, again, smaller scale, as you said, but that's the rivalry, the way they put it, which I always find fascinating, because I don't know that we have a rival like that anymore, which is very interesting. But Tre, I'll turn it over to you here too. And
before we go to Tre, I just had a couple other things that I thought would be worthwhile noting in terms of background. Of course, in the 60s, there were no women's athletics, none. The closest you might come would be a cheerleader. And I went back and I looked through my yearbooks just to kind of refresh my memory, because that was 50 years ago, and realized that, just for your information, Tre, when I was there, baseball was a club sport. It was my senior year, I believe it was 69, it was 1969 when baseball became a varsity sport at the school. So
I had no idea about that. That's crazy.
Yeah.
And then just to hear about your experiences with track and with football, I didn't realize that Case had the phys ed requirement for all these years, because I know that's something I did have to worry about being a varsity athlete. So that's something that I definitely wouldn't have enjoyed either, that 8 a.m. swimming pool routine. But yeah, so a little bit about my athletic experience. I wasn't a multi-sport athlete like you. I did play basketball back in high school, but when I came to Case, it was all baseball all the time. So it's been an awesome experience being on the baseball team here. In my first season, I suffered a torn labrum injury. And it was an injury I had back in high school, but then it just got progressively worse as I got to college. And so I started out my freshman year, I was in the starting lineup, played a few games, and then my arm was just deteriorating, so I had to go and get labrum surgery. And that was an adversity that I faced early on that really was influential in my college career and just in how I've been able to go about academics and school and all of that. So having that injury really made me take a step back and really appreciate baseball, but then also appreciate the academic prowess that Case Western holds, and really be able to dive into my studies and see the importance of what am I going to do post-grad? Because I feel like a lot of people, when they play collegiate athletics, they get so caught up in the now with their sport, and they hesitate to look towards the future. So that injury gave me some time to look towards the future and really figure out where I wanted to go with my career and with my path. So I had an interest in medicine, but I also had an interest in business. So going back and forth with those things during that time of my injury, I was kind of able to figure some things out and really get more into the healthcare profession. So that was a great experience. And then just being on the baseball team, there's been so many things where I've had teammates and then the alumni that I've always been able to support and also give great feedback as far as the academic side or the networking side. I actually work with CASA, which is Case Association of Student Athletes, and we were able to have a networking event a couple weeks ago that was phenomenal with the alumni. So we had people from engineering, medicine, dentistry, and it was awesome. So we all came together and they were able to give us tips and share insights and point us in the right direction. So being an athlete at Case Western has really shown me a lot of different things and allowed me to really benefit from the networking side and the professional side. And then athletically, this season has been great for us. Right now, we're playing really well. We're 16-8. I've battled a few injuries, but now I'm back in the lineup and really having one of my better seasons so far. So it's been great, and just having that team camaraderie. I feel like this year as a team we're really close knit, and even with COVID not being able to do the preseason things that we normally do, I feel like just because of who we are as a program and how our coach really lets the older seniors take charge, I feel like this has really been an impactful year. And baseball has just been such a huge part of my life, and I couldn't imagine it without it. So it's been a great athletic experience here for me at Case so far.
Well, that's good. And it's interesting to hear you talk about the impact that athletics had in terms of the other parts of your life and career choices and decisions and in those regards. And I have a similar experience with my athletics because, however, slightly different reasons perhaps. In the 60s, it was challenging time, positive and negative. A lot of things that were better, especially for racial ethnic groups, but also things that were not as good. Again, looking back, Carl Stokes was elected as the first Black mayor of Cleveland in '67, Thurgood Marshall, Supreme Court Justice in '67. So positive things, but also assassinations, Martin Luther King Jr., Robert Kennedy, riots in Watts and Huff and LA. And so that was a very time of turmoil. And one of the things, and thinking back on it, I didn't really think about it much at the time in terms of significance of it, but we had a really, in a way, schizophrenic situation in that from an integration standpoint, academically and athletically, I felt like it was an integrated environment. We went to class, had good relationships with classmates, and same thing with athletics, but socially, the North was, I would say, about as segregated as the South was in the 60s. There were not any, there were really essentially no social mixing or interaction of the races in the 60s. And so to have a social component was challenging. And one of the things that athletics provided was another opportunity outside of the classroom to have interaction and get to know classmates and parents of classmates. So that was a positive thing in terms of giving us that outlet or that way to connect with classmates, and even looking at from a professor standpoint, because we had this rigorous academic schedule. I don't know that there were any professors that I had more than one semester. And so the contact that I had with coaches in terms of mentoring, in terms of support, was stronger and an important part of what I got out of my school experience. And the other thing, thinking back on it, was that I was focused on going to Case to learn to be an engineer, and didn't think about what I actually got more so from my higher education experience than that, and that being the confidence to be able to have success academically and athletically, and that confidence that helped me to develop my own leadership potential and my style in terms of professional development, approach to problem solving, adaptation, teamwork, and team building. A lot of those things that I didn't think about gaining from my college experience were more important than the academic specifics in terms of what it was to be a mechanical engineer.
Well, Earl, I think you bring up a really good point there, just because of how athletics has really been a way for us to unite and be able to socially talk about different issues and really like build bridges, because especially in just like the year past, 2020 was a crazy year, and just with the Black Lives Matter movement and the different protests and things of that nature that were going on, it was a really tough dynamic, because you had people who weren't exposed to certain cultures and didn't understand didn't understand how like these police brutality acts were going on. But for a Black man in America, like, we understand that, and we like have seen that firsthand. And so athletics gave me an opportunity to kind of use my platform and use my voice to have these tough conversations, and even within my own team, and really sit down with some of my teammates and help them realize, like, listen, like, this isn't just imaginary, like, this is something we face every day. And I even got the opportunity with the UAA to do an article on race relations in America, and just my experience as a Black student athlete at Case Western. And to be honest, it can be tough at times, because as Black students, we only make up 4% of the population here at Case Western. And it's a little bit disappointing, just because the school is very diverse, but I feel like the makeup when it comes to African Americans and Black students, we don't always have that support just from a numbers base. And so personally, my experience on the baseball team has been awesome, because I've never been the only Black student athlete on the baseball team. And for a lot of Black student athletes, like, they can't say that. And even as a baseball player, like, that's not usually the case. So it's been a really awesome experience, and it's something that my team really buys into. I know last year there was 4 of us. There was there was 4 of us, 4 Black student athletes on the baseball team. So like, our coach and we have conversations about it. We literally just got done running a 5K. It was called Spartan Stronger Together, and it's we partnered with the organization I just founded on campus called Black Latinx Athlete Coalition. And so with that, we're just trying to build a more inclusive environment and give the Black student athletes and Latinx student athletes a supportive environment where we can feel comfortable and we can have that representation on campus. So I love what you talked about, because athletics gives us that outlet, and it gives us that ability to use our platform. And that's one thing that I think is special about the student athlete experience at Case Western.
Great.
Well, Tre, I'm wondering if you could maybe go into a little bit more about kind of, BLAC, the Black Latinx Athlete Coalition, and kind of what the purpose is, and kind of how that formed over the course of the last year, really. But take us through that if you can a little bit, and what the goals of that have been.
Yeah, most definitely. So as we talked about this past year, it really was eye-opening for some people that weren't aware of what was going on in society, what was going on in America. And so I was fortunate to be on a lot of calls and a lot of Zoom meetings where we started to have those tough conversations, and we started to bring to light some of those issues that were prevalent in society, in Cleveland, at Case Western, and really just start to talk about it more. So it's the BLAC organization that we founded on campus. I'm one of the co-founders, presidents, and then one of my brothers, Corey King, he is a senior. He's on the track team. really close friends, and we both decided, let's found this organization, get it started at Case Western. So essentially what our organization is trying to do is provide that community and provide that outlet for Black and Latinx student athletes, because those are the two major minorities on campus, especially within the athletic department, to feel that they have a sense of community and a sense of pride, in a place where they can be themselves and really share how they feel, and also create initiatives within the athletic department to help foster a community where we're able to be inclusive and be invited and bring more students to the campus that look like us. So we just did this 5K, and we're looking to do more in the future. But my hope and my goal with this organization is to allow student athletes that may not have the representation on their team specifically to still feel like they aren't by themselves. They're not an outlier. Because personally, for me, coming to Case Western, it was hard because I had imposter syndrome. Just not having people that looked like me, being on an athletics team, it's like, do I belong here? And not having someone to be able to support me through that, or a community to support me through that, it was tough. And there was times where it's like, is this the right place for me? But thankfully, just having the few players on my team and being able to connect with other individuals, I was able to push through that and make it to where I am now. So my goal is to have kids or have student athletes that come in and may feel that way, be able to have that community and feel comfortable and feel like they can be themselves here at Case Western Reserve.
That's great. Do you feel like the work that you're doing also extends to the non-athletes or of color, or do they have other channels or outlets that they can accomplish the same things that you're doing with the athletic side?
Yeah, so definitely. So with the organization, we are under the athletics program, but we're also trying to be under the Black Student Union as well. And so I feel like with sports is something that always brings people together, from different backgrounds, different minorities, ethnicities. Sports can bring people together. So I feel like if we foster a community within the athletics program first with the student athletes, I feel like that'll branch out to the greater community. And that'll also be able to just change how the student body is and how we all move as one. So I think with this organization, not only are we going to be able to make a change within the athletics community, but I think it'll really be influential and change how the undergrad student population is in general.
That's great.
Yes, sir.
Earl, I was struck by something that you said, and I think, Tre, you alluded to this as well, that it's two very similar time periods, I think, in terms of the country and its state right now of, of kind of unrest, if you will. And I want to ask you, Earl, to maybe expand a little bit upon your experience being a college student in the 60s, and in particular being a Black student athlete at Case Western, or at CIT, I guess at the time. What was that like? Did how much did race play a factor into your college experience here?
Great question, John. And it was a time that, on the one hand, was difficult and challenging. And I talked a little bit about what was going on in terms of racial relations and some of the things from a political standpoint. But one other thing that was a big factor at that time was the Vietnam War. And there actually was a racial component to that as well. I do know that Martin Luther King Jr. was very much opposed, not only for the reasons in terms of from a political standpoint, but also because of the draft and the inequity that created in terms of what racial groups were carrying the brunt of the battle, if you will, for the Vietnam War. And again, I touched on the dichotomy in terms of that academically and even from an athletic standpoint, the environment felt integrated, but socially that was not the case. If you look at the neighborhoods, not the case. There were ethnic neighborhoods, there were Black neighborhoods, and there was the white flight to the suburbs in the 60s as my parents' generation were moving up, migrating from the South, getting jobs, buying homes. And so that was a factor. Churches, of course, were segregated. And so it was a very different situation where during the day, during work or academics, you felt like you were a part of the community, but then other times you had to put a different hat on or have a different view of life. You were careful about where you went. We had, again, I went to Collinwood, and when I was junior, senior, I think it was senior, I think it was 69 or 68, no, 65 or 64, there was a riot at Collinwood. And with that in my memory, when I was at Case, there were areas, Murray Hill, where I didn't go. And I'm sure the white students, areas that they didn't go. So it was a different time. And Tre talked about a little bit about fraternity. There was a Greek system at Case, fraternity system, because there weren't any sororities. There weren't enough women at Case at that time to even warrant a sorority system. But the fraternities rushed sophomore year, and we were essentially excluded from that. And so that was an additional attraction for Alpha Phi Alpha in terms of having an outlet, a social outlet, or a way of connection from a social standpoint that was not available to us on the regular campus. So and we had that fraternity. It was citywide, but most of us were at Case at that time. We had a house downstairs of a medical building on Cedar where we met, and where on the weekends we would turn the light on at the side door, and people would drive by to say, "Oh, the Alphas are having a party." And that was a place where Black students, both from Case, Western Reserve, Cleveland State, could go to hang out and be together. During the day, our Black Student Union, if you will, was a dorm room in Part E. Two of the Black students were on campus. I was on campus my freshman year, but I commuted the other 3 years. But if you wanted a place to hang out during the day, you went to their room. And that was, and again, there were probably a total of maybe 10 or 12 Black students at Case total. So it was a very different experience, and again, mixture of good experiences and isolated or inclusive and exclusive experiences at that time.
Earl, and that's crazy to hear from me, because what you just explained are some of the same things that I'm still feeling at this point in time. And just from even like what you talked about, being on campus, but then also having to be cognizant of where you are on campus and things of that nature, just because like being a Black student athlete, and I talk about this a lot, it's tough sometimes because yes, you're a member of campus, yes, you're a member of this society at Case Western Reserve, but at the same time, you have the greater Cleveland area around. And if people don't associate you with Case, like being a Black student on campus, like I feel like there's times where at night I have to be careful, where there's times where I feel like I always need to have something Case Western on, just so people associate me with the campus because of the fear of the surrounding area, or just the fear of me being a Black man in general. Yes. And it's hard because it's like, wow, I feel like I shouldn't have to put up with this, but at the same time, like, it's a part of life, and it's a part of it's just second nature almost. And so that was one thing, the same thing that brought you to Alpha Phi Alpha brought me to Alpha Phi Alpha as well. And just having that sense of brotherhood and having a group of people that looked like you, or that had the same aspirations, and you felt comfortable and you felt like you could be yourself.
Yeah.
And I think that's the great thing also about having a citywide chapter and Pi chapter. Most of our brothers aren't from Case Western Reserve now. And it's a little disappointing. I wish we had more representation here, especially because this is where we were chartered.
Yeah.
But I have a feeling, I feel that with this group of men, I can be myself. I can express some of the things that I'm feeling, and I can feel like I'm in an inclusive environment with people that are similar to myself. And I think that's the great part about our fraternity, specifically just because of our mission statement, our values, what we try to achieve. And that's been an awesome part about my experience so far. And it's allowed me to look outside of just Case Western's campus, but look at greater Cleveland, because I felt like I was kind of not, I didn't see the diaspora of what Cleveland really had to offer until I became a member of the fraternity. So I think that's funny that we have similar experiences this many years apart.
It is, and I think it is a good data point, if you will, to explain to some who think that we've made so much progress, that in 50 years, that some of the same situations and same struggles exist. And that I think that that is a good point to look at and to explain why it hasn't changed as much as those who aren't in it think it's changed.
100%. And people don't always realize that until they're in those shoes. And I think there has been a lot of progress that has been made, but we still have a long way to go. And I think that I know for myself, and knowing that Alpha was something for you that helped you get through your college experience, and was something that was a support system for you, to know that it's still there and Pi chapter is still standing strong, and I'm able to use it now as a support system. It gives me hope and outlook for future generations that it can continue being that, and it can continue being that light that continues to shine a light and keep us moving forward. So
I agree.
Tre, anything else to share about kind of the current state of the chapter? What's happening there?
So we have this year has been awesome for us. So I was initiated in spring 20, but then we had brothers that were initiated in fall 19, and then we just had another initiation class this spring of 21, and it has been remarkable, the things that we've been able to achieve. We've had a ton of events. We've done a lot of community service projects. With our national program of Voteless People to Hopeless People, we had a series essentially where we were able to bring in Secretary of State Frank LaRose. We were also able to bring in one of the prominent judges within Cleveland, and we also had a ballot breakdown. So we had three fantastic events with that. Our community service projects have been getting notoriety across Cleveland, and I'm proud to say we won District Chapter of the Year. We won Regional Chapter of the Year, and now in July, I'll be headed to Indianapolis, Indiana to present as we look to win National Chapter of the Year. So it's been an awesome experience for me so far. The brothers of the chapter have put in some amazing work. We have brothers from Paul and Wallace University, Cleveland State, Ashland University, John Carroll. We're up to 9 schools in the charter now.
Wow.
So it's been tremendous. My experience has been phenomenal. I'm so proud of the work we've been doing. Our chapter advisor, Jock Smith, Senior, he's been really influential, and so it's been phenomenal. So I'm very proud of where we are.
Congratulations. And one of the things I can hear is that what could be in some ways a weakness or a deficiency, not having roots in one specific campus, you've turned into a strength. And so I think that's outstanding. And I congratulate to you and the brothers of the chapter for a job well done.
Yes, sir. We appreciate it. And I think, like you said, that's something that we've turned into a strength, and we're very proud of it. So we try to always get different interests from different universities and being able to bring all our different intellects and bring our different skill sets, and also using all 9 schools to our advantage really helps us out. And so we're looking to do some great things. Currently, we're actually starting a project to get a monument built on Case's campus. So I'll have to keep you in the loop with that. We're going to do some fundraising over these next couple months. We're looking to put together basically an outline and a design of what we're trying to achieve. So hopefully we can get that monument here on campus, just to let people know this is our home base. The Case Western Reserve is where we were chartered May 14th, May 15th, 1914. So yeah, we're doing some great things. So we appreciate your support really much.
Well done. Well done.
Yes, sir.
Well, I think kind of, coming up on the conclusion of our conversation here, but, Earl, I know one thing that you wanted to talk about and certainly reflect with Tre on is how your experience at Case helped shape your future. And if you could share that a little bit about how your time here really helped your path going forward.
Well, thanks, John. And I touched on it a little bit when I talked about confidence. It was a journey, again, that I had arrived in 1965 with certain expectations and left in 69 with a different path. I came in as planning to be an engineer and left with a desire to be in management or executive ranks. And so that was certainly a difference. But then along the way, going from started work at General Electric and again, spent almost 10 years there, discovering that educational experience, getting through, running the gauntlet at Case. I still remember as clear as it was the other day that in freshman orientation, you go into Strosacker and you're told that look to the left and look to the right, and only one of the 3 of you will be at graduation. And being one of the ones of the 3 4 years later, was very impactful in terms of giving us, I think, not just me, but I think all of those that were there for that graduation, the confidence that you could do anything, that there wasn't a technical challenge that you couldn't master, and applying that confidence and that problem-solving approach to life, and learning how to add business acumen into that, and then discovering that those skills and the ability to communicate and problem solve gave you, help you tap into your leadership potential, and really doing something with that in terms of building a business and being involved in boards and community service, and all of that from the foundation of what you learned and what you grew from in terms of your higher education experience at Case. So I think that was something that was unexpected, but something that I carry forward, the most valuable thing that I got from my education, and it's something that's been a positive and valuable resource for me throughout my life, family life, professional life, and community service life as well.
Tre, I'll open it up here to you as well. Anything that we haven't covered that you'd like to touch base on, anything that you'd like to share?
Just going off of what Earl talked about, I think that the experience that I've had at Case Western Reserve has been tremendous because of Case is very how can I say this? It's one of a kind. Just because, like, for me as a student athlete, I was able to come to Case, have a great athletic experience, but I was also surrounded by so many great individuals who had similar mindsets, who wanted to achieve great things as well. And now as a senior, we're all starting to go our different ways, and we're all starting to figure out our future careers, our future paths. And the part that I love about it is we're all doing great things. All my friends, all my teammates, like, everyone has a path that they're about to go on, or a journey they're about to embark on, where they're going to do something tremendous in this lifetime that they have. And that's the part that I love about the university, because we're a bunch of individuals who know how to work hard, know how to care about each other, but we're all going to do great things in life. And I think that's a powerful tool, because we all have Case Western Reserve on our resumes. So we're a family at the end of the day. And I hope and I really pray that the network that and the friendships that I've been able to build can last a lifetime. And in 20, 30 years, we can all sit down and be like, wow, we really made it. We really did what we wanted to do. And I think that's just a powerful thing about attending this university and speaking to alumni and hearing success stories, and knowing that the 4 years, even though it might have been a grind, it might have been tough, like, it's going to pan out. It's going to work out. And the things that I've learned as an undergraduate student will stay with me for the rest of my life. So, Earl, that's why I appreciate your time, and hearing your story. It just gives me hope, and it gives me encouragement, especially as African-American males, like, just to hear a success story coming from the same alma mater as me, it really touches me, and it really makes me feel like I can achieve anything. And so I appreciate it. I appreciate it most definitely.
Well, I'm happy to have the opportunity at this stage for me to be able to pass along experience, words of wisdom, pitfalls as well. That's the most important thing yet to be done, is to share that with coming generations. So I appreciate the opportunity to do that, and to meet you, and to feel just so positive and wonderful about generations coming up and what you've accomplished, and feeling like we are in and will be in good hands with the work that you and your generation will be doing. So I'm really heartened to see that. So it was a really great time to have this meeting with you, and time to share our stories.